know the fairy tale of Goldilocks, right? She was a little girl that was fond of a bit of breaking and entering. She used to go around licking people's spoons and sleeping in their beds, looking for stuff that was just right. Well, I've got a pitch for what I think is the Goldilocks moment of electric cars. And it's that. It's the Hyundai Kona Electric.
Yeah, alright, so it's a bit weird that I'm comparing a slightly odd-looking Korean SUV thing to the perfect car. But bear with me here. Do you get it? Bear with me?
But before we get to all that, please do go on to electrifying.com and do all the things you're supposed to do on the videos and the articles, like, subscribe and comment. But if you could, do it all specifically on my stuff, because that'll really annoy Ginny and Nikki. Anyway, back to the Kona. Now, I have this thing with EVs about fitness for purpose. So I reckon that I'd run an electric car for commuting and the daily grind and all the boring stuff. And then I'd have a twin turbo V8 with a bucket load of nitrous for high days and holidays. You know, basically I'd get the best of both worlds. And this car really is a very rational choice. It's a smallish 5-seat SUV type thing that looks nice but isn't particularly flash. It's a very practical car that covers a lot of bases. It also comes very highly equipped and has top quality range.
It comes in two flavours, both essentially the same apart from the battery pack. Version 1 is standard range and comes equipped with a 39 kilowatt set of cells, 186 mile range, 136 brake horsepower and a list price of about 30 grand once you've dragged in the UK government grant. The one we have here is the long range battery pack. 64 kilowatt hours, 278 miles of range, 204 brake horsepower and a 36 grand price tag with the grant in place. Now that's all very rational, and you can get one quickly. Hyundai has reacted to the increase in demand for EVs and ordered a load more, so the waiting list is actually very short to non-existent. That's a deal breaker in some cases for pure battery EVs. If you're into the charging stats, they stack up. The big battery version will charge up in about 9.5 hours on a standard 7.2 kilowatt home charger arrangement. That's kind of overnight. And if you're out and about on a decent 50 kilowatt rapid charger, you'll see 80% of full in under an hour, with significantly quicker times for the smaller battery, obviously. You can charge both on an included granny charger from a 3-pin plug, but as ever, that's best left for emergencies because it takes an entire lifetime.
And you know what? It goes a bit. With just over 200 brake horsepower, this car is peppy. It'll cruise at 70 miles an hour easily, though acceleration does tend to tail off a little bit as you go faster. And once you're up to speed, it is a little bit noisy, listen, especially around the rear wheel arches, but I think that's probably because it's so quiet everywhere else that there's no other noise to distract you. It will also do 104 miles an hour, though I'm not entirely sure why. Doesn't mean I'm not going to try though. 109, no best limiter. As usual these days, it's got several modes, all of which alter the car's behaviour and which you sort of access through this little drive mode button down here. It's got Eco, Normal and Sport, which do pretty much what they say on the tin. Eco will knock out the aircon, basically soften off the throttle response and seriously improve your range, and Sport basically does the opposite, makes it faster but you'll deplete the battery a lot quicker. It doesn't make the aircon any colder because that would be weird. It also doesn't actually make it that much more sporty, but hey ho. Now yes, you can feel the Kona Electric's 1.7 tonnes sort of rolling around a bit, but the weight is held low so it feels quite stable and safe. And you know what, when you start playing with the gadgets, you may be some time. First up, you can make this a properly one-pedal car by playing with these paddles and the brake regeneration. Essentially, if you pull the paddles, you get different levels of brake regen from 1 to 3, and it's like changing down in a car with a gearbox. So if you want to slow down, I'm in level 1 recuperation, I want to slow down, and I pull it, you can see I'm slowing up. And actually, it will eventually completely stop the car. And that actually makes it really useful in town. Or you can set it up with Smart Brake Regen. And now this is where the car in front of you, like this one, it senses the car in front with radar, and then it basically uses the brake regeneration to match speed. It'll also figure out if you're going up or down a hill and adjust accordingly, and that's quite neat. And it's actually very relaxing. You're basically topping up the battery as much as you can, and wasting as little energy as possible all of the time. You don't even need to think about it. Now, the kit list is also extensive. I'm going to speak really, really fast here so that we can mention all the highlights. 1, 2, 3, go!
This top-spec Premium SE gets a head-up display, 7-inch Supervision cluster, 8-inch LCD nav and cameras, Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, a bigger Krell audio system, power, heat, cool, leather front seats and a heated steering wheel, LED headlamps and smart regenerative braking. There's also a brain-hurting list of safety kit including airbags everywhere, the smart cruise I mentioned and stop and go, forward collision, avoidance assist, pedestrian detection, lane keep, follow assist, blind spot monitors, rear cross traffic warning, intelligent speed limit warning and high beam assistant.
The good thing about the Kona is it's just very competent. So the steering is fine, the handling is fine, the way it rides is very nice. It's a glass of water as a car, but as an EV, it's just a car. So it's got everything that I kind of look for in a modern EV. I've got brake recuperation, I've got radar cruise, I've got loads and loads of kit. It's quiet enough. I mean, I will say it is slightly noisy in those rear wheel arches, but that's probably because it's so quiet otherwise. It's got enough space, it's a decent size. It's all of those things that I was talking about that makes it an 8 out of 10 car across the board, which means that it actually scores really high.
It's also easy to order because there really aren't any options apart from the colour. You pick a battery size and trim level and that's it. The only standard colour is grey, all the other options are 565 quid, so that's pretty much it. As for the bad stuff, well, it's all relatively minor. It's not exactly a sexy looking thing from some angles, the rear has a lot going on, and the aero alloy wheels actually look like wheel trims to me. It's also front wheel drive when it looks like it might be all wheel drive, which bugs me for some non-specific reason. It's also not cheap. None of the longer range EVs are just yet, but it's definitely getting there.
But what we've actually got here is a car that's slap bang in the middle of the usability curve. It's the right size for the daily grind, it drives very nicely, it's the right amount of fast, it's got a decent boot. You can buy one right now, and it's well equipped as standard. In fact, the cash for capability on this particular Kona is strong. You could go so far as to say it's just right.
As ever, if you need to know anything else about the Kona Electric or its competitors, then please do visit electrifying.com and check out all the info on there. Particularly check out the articles about tax and how you can save if you buy an electric car like the Kona, because it might save you a few quid.